Tonight, families of 4 murdered kidnapped girls hire their own people to continue search for their daughters, despite police announcement that the girls are dead.
You're still going. Now you have engaged some people. You make the same search to go and find because you believe our granddaughter is alive. Now they say the 4 companies are dead. Therefore, the docket has been closed, but they are lying. It's not closed. It's still open. It's closed from the IGP, but it's not closed to us.
We're live in the Western Regional Capital as calls grow for a parliamentary inquiry into the police investigations.
So there are multiple levels at which an inquiry, and I think it must be a full inquiry. Or the Parliamentary Committee on Defense and Interior that has the overall oversight of all the security and intelligence.
And Topstory is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion, also brought to you by Gasem Cement, the nation builder. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready. Well, tonight, the families of the 4 Takrade kidnapped girls have told us that they are now hiring their own people to continue the search for their daughters, despite police announcement that the girls are dead. The police held the press conference last night and made the shocking revelation that left the families distraught, but also left to a situation this morning where we've seen some agitations in the Western Regional Enclave where the families live. We'll be going live to the Western Regional Capital shortly, where my colleague Kojo Yang Singh has been all day following this story for us. But I want you to listen to the grandfather of Ruth Abeka, who has been speaking to us at the back of a press conference today. Emmanuel Anza Kobda lays out what the family's plans are because of their fundamental mistrust for the police own announcement yesterday. They believe strongly that their daughters are still alive and they are going ahead to hire their own people to continue the search.
Nobody will believe it. You don't believe it. Whatever they will say, IGP will come here and tell me the regional commander will come here. I will never believe it. And I know sure that my daughter, even at a resident, that's a Friday, just Friday. Today is Tuesday, Friday. Somebody rang me that my daughter is at Sutu. You should come. And you have given the file to the police. Why don't you stop? Even after you have known them, why don't you stop and go and investigate? You can come the number that you have given to them and search whether it is true or not. Whether it is 419 or whatever.
Are you still going to pursue the Sulfium angle?
Yeah, you do that. You'll be going. You use our way, our own way, to make search. You're still going. Now you have engaged some people. You make the same search to go and find because you believe our granddaughter is alive. What they are doing, they want to cover the whole thing that they have ended the case. Now they say the 4 companies are dead. Therefore, the docket has been closed. But they are lying. It's not closed. It's still open. It's closed from the IGP, but it's not closed to us. The case will be carried on, and it's going to hand them to bring the truth. How can Tiwa tell us that they have found it at Nigeria, they have found it? Look, you see, it's like a draft that they are making our mind to believe. The police doesn't talk like that. You talk on principles and facts. When you say yes, yes, no, no, you don't juggle cases. You are using our daughters and this thing to juggle with the vehicles. Doing that, doing that.
Well, that's there is the grandfather of one of the kidnapped girls who, as we now know, turned out dead after the skeletons were found and DNA down on the body, Ruth Abeka. I want to go into the phone lines now. Let's speak to Head of Research at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, Dr. Kwesieni, security analyst himself. Dog, what do you make of the position the family is taking on the back of the announcement that the police put out last night?
Well, Evans, I think this morning I've argued fairly strongly that because of the shock, the pain, the trauma, that the families would need to be given some support in terms of counseling and in terms of, trauma healing processes. I'm not surprised by the action that they seem to take because I've just watched part of the clip of the IGP's interview And that unprofessional behavior by some of his officers in laughing and seemingly having great fun immediately after the press conference might have sent wrong signals. And I think it's imperative that there's a conversation with the families to assure them that this is a conclusive DNA test to assuage their heads because of the behavior of those officers who we all saw on television, and to ensure that no further questions about the credibility of the forensic results are raised. I mean, the more the families continue to drag this because of their pain and question the professional ethos and performance of the service, the more they win sympathy from the public side. And I think the police service cannot right now afford to lose public sympathy in terms of their bigger fight against crime and all the threats that we face. So I think it would be useful, and I'd suggest to the police administration that they should very quickly find, mediators, alternative dispute resolution experts, to go in there with the psychologists, with the trauma experts, and start a conversation about trying to heal and then trying to help these people to reconstruct and rebuild their lives.
And Doc, you make the point, but from what we're witnessing today unfold in the Western Regional Capital, the enclave where these families live, it appears that the police cannot go in now, at least until tensions have subsided. I want to play you a clip of what happened today when the police actually attempted to go into the community. Just follow this. This is it will start with a police officer who is attempting to reach out to the family, speaking to my colleague, whilst the community chased them out literally.
It is normal. Every police officer has been trained to accommodate any situation in which you'll be confronted with. So whether hostile or not hostile is part of our routine.
The people here think the police have done a bad job with this investigation. What do you think?
I will not comment.
You think the police did a good job?
I will not comment on that.
Were you involved in this investigation?
I say I will not make further comments.
So, is it fair to assume you were involved?
It's okay.
Would you like to tell us your name? Well, this is how the police are being met by the people of Diabini with anger, fury, disgust, disappointment. They are extremely unhappy. And as the police drive off, they follow them with jeers and chants, and they keep knocking on saucepans and other metal items as they send a clear signal that they do not want the police in this community.
I mean, Dr. Henning, that is the reality of the situation on the ground tonight. How does the police get around this?
That is the sad and painful reality, but it's important that it is not allowed to degenerate any further. This is a hostile reaction that has built over time because the communication from the police service was poor, there was miscommunication, there were false information put out there, it has not been retracted. Let's not forget that the families were assured that the girls had been found, that they were at BNI, that they would be handed over very soon. So from that statement, that might have diverted attention from the forensic and investigation work being done by the specialist teams from headquarters in interrogating this Udok or Utek or whatever he's called. So the anger that we are seeing is also against the fact that within the larger police service, multiple falsehoods were sent out that may have diverted the investigation, that may have stopped the investigation, and may have let other people off the hook. Okay? And in doing the communication, there's been no apology, There's been no explanation as to why that falsehood was put out there. But we need the service, the larger service, to continue to provide protection and security in this country. So the Takoradi case right now seems like an isolated case. But we are seeing other murders and attacks. Budumburam epitomizes that. The murder of the Gomwa chief, the 2 or 3 people murdered in Ashaman. We need to find a way to assure communities that it's not always the fault of the police when murders do take place and perpetrators in the short term seem to have escaped. Because if these sporadic acts of violence continue, it undermines the confidence and the capacity of the police. We need to have a service that is assured that it can go into communities, it can work. The Takoradi case, what you place to us right now, must not be taken out of context. One of the things that the Ghana Police Service has consistently failed to do well is crowd control. Okay? And right now, with kidnapping stroke hostages becoming fairly routine, we need a crack team of hostage negotiators within the service, trained as to how to deal first with some of these larger hostile crowds, but more specifically with individuals who have captured people and are demanding either a ransom or are threatening to kill them or are threatening to push people from high buildings or jump themselves. These are new frontiers to policing. These are new frontiers to how we need to help the police to help us. So much as, yes, there's a bit of pain, anger, bitterness, probably this also creates another opportunity for the acting IGP, and certainly not the men who were laughing at all of us behind him, to stretch out his hand and to say, look, the burdens that we face are way beyond what the service alone can handle. Can you help us?
Yeah, and Doug, you also recommended today some form of an inquiry into the way the police itself has handled this particular probe. What purpose will that serve?
That will serve, first, 2 main things. What was the intent of the investigations when these girls were kidnapped? What type or how do we assess the effectiveness or otherwise of the procedures and processes that we put in place to rescue these girls? And what recommendations should be made to ensure that miscommunication, false news doesn't become a tool of police ethics? Okay, that also creates an opportunity for those who are being criticized, accused, whose heads are being asked for, to be given an opportunity to also speak for themselves. Right now, were we to do a random sampling of people's perception of how the police has performed, I think we would get a low mark, particularly yesterday after the IGP, the acting IGP, spoke in solemn tones, factual tones, and after that, his men just behaved the way they did. This is a moment of crisis of credibility, and I think it's crucial that this commission of inquiry is set up, because we need an effective, functional 21st century police service. And I think the behavior the last couple of months leaves a lot to be desired.
I'm grateful that you join us with those thoughts. That is Head of Research at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center there, Dr. Kwesi Yening. If you're just joining us here on Top Story, the latest coming out of the Western Regional Capital is that the families of the 4 kidnapped girls who turned out murdered say they are now hiring the services of their own people to continue the search for their missing girls. They still believe they're missing, in spite of the fact that the police held a press conference last night and categorically announced the results of a DNA test on skeletons discovered from a manhole in the home previously occupied by the prime suspect. The conclusive turned out to be the bones of those 4 girls who've been kidnapped before. The police say it's in essence, sounds the end of the probe, with the unfortunate conclusion that the girls are dead. But the families are having none of that. They're not accepting that at all. And they have rejected the DNA results And tonight we're learning here on Top Story that they are actually going further to hire their own people to continue the search for these girls. My colleague Kojo Yangsing is in Western Region, on the line with me right now. Kojo, there was a press conference today addressed by the families. Fundamentally, they are opposed to the outcomes announced by the police last night.
Yes, Evans. And what we are discovering is that their opposition is not only to the announcement of the DNA test results last night, but to the entirety of the police's handling of this case. They point to several instances in which they feel the police could have done a lot better. And as a result of this cumulative effect of what they consider to be ineptitude on the part of the police, they are rejecting this final result. Let's hear one of the members of the families who spoke in local language about this issue.
You want the sheet of the analysis?
Yes, the certified
sheet of the analysis. And you question them, how long has they kept the bone? Whether 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years? And you assume it to come and tell us that it's our daughters. How? Because of this, my wife is still now collapsed. When he heard the IGP, the bones they found are the children dead. It's now collapsed. From yesterday to today, we are now reviving. Let us know from the DNI, the IGP, that it should show us the lay down route. This bone is for Pesla, this bone is for root, this bone is for this for so. Today that we are talking, you don't know the bone, whether it is a Akrante bones, whether it is any other thing. You don't know. When we are sending the bones to them, no one of us witnessed that very bones. And you don't know how it was processed. There is no iota of truth of what they have said. And you are not going to believe it. We are not going to believe it.
So that's it appeared, Kojo, that the atmosphere there appeared very charged. Just earlier, before you joined us, I played to the hearing of Dr. Inning, something you witnessed. And at the tail end of this very clip also, it seemed to be there as well. There's a boiling, simmering anger that is now boiling to the surface, directed at the police.
Yes, a lot of this, perhaps, the experts might tell us, is down to grief. Grief that is being processed through its normal stages of denial and so forth. And at this point, the community are simply angry that at the end of a stressful process through which they have felt like the police have not prioritized their needs, at the end of that, it has turned out to be a loss and not a win. The hope that they had been holding on to, the thing that had made it bearable for them to stumble through the various mistakes that they say the police made throughout this investigation, that hope has been extinguished once and for all. And it is a difficult thing to take. They are looking for avenues, outlets to release their anger. And at the moment, unfortunately, it would appear that it is the Nigerian community in Takoradi that seems to be the target of their anger. And of course, the police, who they think could have done a great deal better.
And talking about a Nigerian angle to this, and you sort of gauging the pulse there, spoke to people who appear to be saying that they will be, there's a setting, they will be sort of venting this pent-up anger and frustration on your colleagues from the other community. Such a worrying situation. I remember you speaking to the Western Regional Minister, and he was absolutely concerned about this particular threat of reprisals directed at the Nigerian community there. You are hearing people say that is now very likely now in the wake of the announcement last night.
Yes, Evans, and you correctly recall how the regional minister said that one of the major factors behind the release of a press statement around the time the remains were found was because they were concerned, RegSec was concerned that there is a very clear and present danger against Nigerians in the community in terms of reprisal attacks. Now we are seeing those thoughts being put into words by the youth who feel like they've been left behind throughout this process. I spoke to somebody on the grounds of the press conference who actually said quite clearly that they know where the Nigerians live in the community. They know where they work, and they need to watch their backs. Let's hear him.
Not that we can react to other Nigerians who are in this country. We know where they are staying. We know where most of them are working. Most of them are also our friends. you see, we can also do the same thing to them. But because Ghana is a peaceful country, because of that, it's like no one wants to trying to do something bad to defame the country. But all what we are trying to tell them that we can also do the same thing.
Is that a threat that you're making, that if the police don't do what you want, you will attack Nigerians?
You see, it's not that a threat. It's a caution that they should react to this issue very well.
And that definitely should be a warning to the Western Regional Police Command, the Western Regional Security Council, that had in the past raised alerts about this and had deployed men to forestall this. This clearly is something that is simmering, and we're broadcasting that so the authorities will be on alert to prevent that from happening. But Kojo, there is also today, we're learning also that apparently some of the family members say the president had called them before the announcement was made. What do we know about this?
Well, I spoke to Nana Adjoa Kwesen, who is an older sister of the third victim to disappear, Ruth Love Kwesen. Now, Nana Adjoa has spoken to us on several occasions, and she's never minced words about her disappointment and how the process has unfolded. But today, her biggest disappointment was reserved for the president. She feels that the president's trip to the Western region should have been an opportunity for him to visit the families, or at least ask for them to be brought, to his presence, so that he could express some words of condolence and encouragement at a time when the girls were still believed to be missing. They say the president did none of that. He went across to Axim, where he made some passing comment about the fact that the police are not asleep. And that the investigations are ongoing. Well, awake or asleep, the results are out. And the girls, according to the DNA test that the police have announced, are dead. So, of course, the family members, upon hearing this news, the last person they wanted to talk to was the president. This is what Nana Adjoa told me about their reaction when the president called.
Nanadu obe kroma, obedu kroma no awofo woma ebusan nai a woma asan what the maire atuo ma awofo wodi ebobu otedam Nanadu otwam okodu Azim asa Nanadu baka chende case no na wo ho wona kra no were wodu dwuma na sanne police fo matuma ba out mbaka chende asam na sim oboku hwehwem be maye bian monye gusan na ni na behia monye waye den aye hwehwemu Nanadu afred on ye bakasa sabi obu wo mi na ye de ye mampani atuma ma ye nandu atu embe gusan na nne ebe fra ye phone do den ye be di komo na che ye kaso ye enti Nanadu ye ne kasa nda ye ne kasa china.
So you had the family member there making the disclosure, something we are now learning, that apparently the president had called and the families had said they will not talk to him because of, obviously, in the moment of disappointment and anger following the announcement that their relatives have been murdered after being kidnapped for several months. Kojo, so you witnessed that scene where the police were booed, hooted at, and literally chased out of the community. I get a sense then that as far as that community is concerned, we don't have any police presence there. And the families say to us tonight that they are going ahead to hire their own people to continue the search for the girls, despite the fact that the police say they are dead.
Now, Evans, this is very significant. It is a clear vote of no confidence in the ability of the police to bring any sort of resolution to this matter, to the satisfaction of the families. And I talked about how this is a cumulative effect. So first of all, the police arrested this suspect, Samuel Wills, the day after the fourth victim went missing. Then he escaped within a matter of a week. He was out of the cell for 5 days. The family tell us that he was using his phone to communicate with them, the same phone that the police were supposed to have seized at the time they first arrested him. He was using this phone while he was out after having escaped. This is a matter of bafflement to the families. Beyond that, after he was rearrested, several other issues come up. The fact that the clothing for the fourth victim was found at the scene of his rearrest, yet that did not lead to any search of the area. We know this because just a month ago, when they actually did search the area, they found human remains. So all of these things being put together are what have accumulated to the point where the community do not believe that the police is a source of protection or even law enforcement for them. And they simply do not want to see them. This is a situation that really needs to be brought under control as quickly as possible so that everybody in that community can rely on the security services for their protection.
I'm grateful, Kojo. As you've just heard earlier, the calls now for some form of an inquiry into how the police handled it to trigger reforms when future incidents crop up, such as this. Dr. Kwesining had suggested that a commission of inquiry could be looked into this, possibly also a bipartisan parliamentary committee to also look into this. Thankfully, we can now speak to the chairman of the Parliament's Defence and Interior Committee, Seth Champon. Mr. Champon, thank you for your time here on Top Story. There are these calls that I know that your committee started inviting some relevant individuals from the police service, asking them questions in the heat of the Bring Back Our Tardy Girls campaign to try and understand this. I think you paused at some point because you were waiting the outcome of the result. The outcome is now known. Is the committee open to looking into a proper probe into how this was handled so we can learn the lessons?
Thank you very much, Evans. Good evening to yourselves and everybody listening to us at the moment. I first and foremost would want to express my deepest condolences to the families so far as the news broken down to us by the Ghana Police Service via the Acting Inspector General of Police last night. I least suspected this was going to be the end result. However, this is the news we have on our hands. And like you rightly said, it's still a matter that it's in conversation, is out there in the front burner. So we are all looking at every opportunity to help, first and foremost, to educate ourselves as people on our personal security, besides that, our public safety, how going forward we will strategically look at our policies and then see how best we will fashion out measures that will bring confidence and deeper confidence in public safety. This is a very crucial matter. We need to really look at it holistically from that angle. There are several commentary that you may hear, but as a committee, we haven't brought closure on this matter. Parliament is on recess at the moment. We have, as a committee, we're going to embark on oversight tour to the Western region and some other parts of our country. It is a matter that we will take seriously when we get there and see how best we can also help in mitigating a forward solution that will bring some level of understanding amongst all of us. These are the things we're looking at currently. I'm
grateful that you joined us. As Seth Champon is the chair of the Defence and Interior Committee in Parliament. There's more on this. You want to stay with us on Newsnight for this and more coming up shortly.